I love and respect for you for even trying this technology stuff.
Thank you. It has been my mission to conquer technology. So
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for being so patient. We did have to disconnect from our original live and then reconnect because I want to see Colin and I both. While we're chatting. I want you guys don't want to just look at me. We want to be able to see us both and get that interaction. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I am again. I'm Chastity, and I'm with the amazing Colin. I've really been enjoying listening to the things that you share, Colin, about the universe, about the self, about the soul. You guys, we have really scratched the surface about holographic realities. We have, we have, we have talked about uh, who's actually in charge here. And speaking of planetarily, so we've talked a little bit about scratching the surface of fallen angelics, and who they are, and what they've done here to our planet, to our mind, to our body, and little bit about maritime law. These are all things we've really only scratched on. And I know we're going to be able to go deeper as we go on because everything's going to start to build on top of each other. And they all have this beautiful weave, right? And they are just going to continue to filter in. And one of the things that I've noticed, Colin, in the planet, and it sounds like we're kind of on the same page here, is that we are starting to really embody our soul. And this is in the fourth dimension, right? This is like our body lives, and correct me if I'm wrong. I've been wrong before, so this is just from my awareness. And so I do get things off. So please feel free to go, wait, hold on. I see it in the fourth dimension, and so then of course that breaks up into different harmonics, right? So harmonics are different than dimensions, and everybody will begin to understand this language as we go on because we're going to be using language that is important, that has been kept from us, and that our intention is to bring back truth, bring back awareness, bring back these memories. And Colin has really embodied and brought back so much knowledge from his higher self. And the soul is an aspect of the higher self. And so it's a consciousness, and it's an individual consciousness that comes from the eternal God source, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so let's just talk a little bit about this. What is your take? And what is the soul? Let's talk a little bit about the soul.
Yeah. Uh, Something happened on Friday night. And we spoke about it a little earlier, where I literally, Friday evening, I couldn't sleep. I went to bed and I tossed and I turned and I tossed and I turned and I got up and walked around and then got back into bed and tried to sleep and then I tossed and I turned and there were all these things going on. Now, when that happens to me, I know that something is coming through, but I'm not hearing it.
Mm.
So, literally, Friday night, I didn't sleep. I said to myself, lie in bed, close your eyes, and just, allow, when you sleep, your pineal gland pushes out melatonin into your body. Melatonin is a kind of a chemical that repairs many um, cells in the body. So I just wanted to let that happen, even though I couldn't get my mind at rest. I just went on with this process. And then last night, I, I, I went to sleep at 9 in the evening, which is unusual for me. But, I just felt so tired. I just fell into bed, went to sleep. And during my sleep, I I was watching this person standing on a big rock, speaking to thousands of people, and he was speaking about the power of the soul. And he gave this amazing kind of Sermon on the Mount, although I don't like to think of that as being a sermon, but he was just teaching, and he spoke about the power of the soul. And I think that was the message that was trying to come through on Friday night, but I couldn't get the message because I couldn't slow my mind down enough to actually fall asleep. So tonight, I thought what I'd like to do is to speak about that, the power of the soul, and what the soul body is, what it does, what it's capable of, and how it interacts with the universe, how it's part of the fabric and is interwoven with the universe. Um, so I'll start at this point. Most of humanity are not aware that they are soul beings. They tend to think of themselves as being physical matter, and they draw all their information, they draw all their experiences from their physicality. And this has been a trick that's been played on them, because our thoughts and our emotions are not visible. They're just apparent. Okay. And people can't seem not to be, they're asleep to the fact that they have these two powerful tools within them called thoughts and emotions. And they just have all these thoughts fed to them by a fallen angelic race of beings here who indoctrinate them, who control them. They put them into a system of control. And this control is designed to control their thoughts. And then this control system puts humans under a barrage of continuous trauma and confusion and difficulties that we experience that is not what those things are meant to be, what our emotions and our thoughts are meant to be. Our thoughts are extremely powerful. Our emotions are extremely powerful because both of them are energy forms. Now, how do we know that they're energy forms? Because if you go for an ECG and they put those little pads in your body, what they're measuring are the waves, the electromagnetic fields in your body.
Right.
The electric fields in your body are your thoughts, and the magnetic fields are your emotions. So while you're having an ECG and you're thinking and you're feeling, whatever you're thinking is being displayed, whatever you're thinking and feeling is being displayed on an electrocardiograph. So these are very real energies we have. And most people just think that they don't have any understanding where their thoughts come from and what their thoughts are and what they can do with them. And they think that their thoughts come from what they've learned.
Right.
And if what they've learned is false and nonsense, that is what they're going to think.
Yeah. And one of the things that's coming up for me, I just want to go back a little bit to your dream. When you say mount, you know what I'm thinking is the Temple Mount, and in Jerusalem. And so this to me is like supposed to be one of the, well, the like most powerful space or area to receive God, to
Yeah,
receive source. So it's interesting that you chose the word mount. I just wanted to share that with you as it was coming up. But in terms of being the electromagnetic beings, there are grids in our planet, right? The ley lines, right? And then these grids have been taken over, right? So they're NRG grids. So they have created these reversal patterns. So if we think about places like Stonehenge, Stonehenge is like a radio system, basically, that was set up by the fallen angelics. They infiltrated this gate, right? And they're pumping out these waves or reversed geometries, right? So they
yeah,
are telling us how we are thinking, feeling, right? Because we're in this, this goes right back into, the uh, holographic realities, but understanding that, this is the thing. I don't know who said this, Colin, but whoever controls the mind controls the soul. And
yeah.
that I think, what do you have to say about that? Because that statement actually gives me chills. Whoever controls the mind controls the soul. And people don't understand that the fallen angelics, and we're talking about Thoth, Enki, and Leal, these collective thought processes, right, that control our minds. How,
Yeah.
how, how do we take, I know I'm asking a couple questions here, but how do we take back our power and bring our soul into manifestation and allow our soul to run the show
Yeah.
without the mind manipulation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as I've explained to other people in different shows, that I spent 8 years as a grid worker on this planet.
Mhm.
And part of the grid work was to undo what was done to our planetary grids, Earth grids, by the fallen angelics. And when they came here, uh, they set up a whole system, a very elaborate system to control our thoughts and emotions. Okay. And this system was called the Atlantean Pylon Interface Network,
Yeah.
the IPIN system. And this system was designed to, to well, there were two things that happened. The Earth was moved off its natural north-south alignment with its magnetic fields.
Right.
And, and they used that misalignment to create a new ley line system on the planet. And ley lines are basically portals of information, of light and sound information, electromagnetic information. And so we, as electromagnetic beings, because that's what we are, as soul beings, we are this energy that exists. And people don't understand that they are energy beings. They're not bodies. The energy creates the body.
Mhm.
And in further shows, we'll get further into that and how the energy creates the body. But they created the system called the Atlantean Pylon Interface Network in order to distort the way waves of energy flowed around the Earth. Now, when they created those distortions, they also distorted the human DNA. So they introduced the DNA of another race group called the Nephilim.
Yeah.
And this caused many changes, but they also, through their abduction programs, would take humans off planet, uh, change their DNA and strip them. And over a period of 12,500 years, they caused humanity to, and this is diabolical in the sense that they caused humanity to change their own DNA.
Right.
by keeping them traumatized. We don't understand that we control our DNA. Our DNA is part of us. It's an energy system within the physical body. Okay, because DNA is electromagnetic energy, basically. That that's what it is. We told something different on this planet, but so they used humanity's the trauma that they caused here on this earth for 12,500 years to affect the DNA. Once they succeeded in that from about 12,500 years BC, they then introduced the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were introduced in order to create a system on this planet of bloodline rule, royalty rule, exceptionalism, beings who were given domain over the planet. So they became the rulers of the planet. And so humanity was very confused. They didn't know what they were. And so they systematically began to introduce a system of religions and belief systems that would corrupt the human mind.
I was hoping we were going to just touch a little bit on religion today, honestly. It's really been coming up a lot for me lately as the gosh, there's just so much here, but because of the purging of so much uh, human consciousness and lost memories, all these things purging up from the planet. And you know, some communities, you know, they'll call this the dark night of the soul. So we're going through a planetary dark night of the soul. You know, I really try to be careful with using terms because they get infiltrated so easily, right? But this really goes into that what I've been sensing lately, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is, and I'll say this several times over. I'm a recovering Catholic, right? I remember saying, you know, one time I was supposed to, I was supposed to pray. You know, my family had said, "Oh, Chastity, do you want to lead us in prayer?" And it was Easter, and I was 13, and I said, "Yeah, but before I do that, can I just ask a question? Why are we participating in such a bloodshed religion?" And it's not because I read the Bible, right, from front to back or anything like that. It's this knowing that I came with, that this is vile, that there are lies. This is not true. And, you know, that it is pulsated through the NRG grid, so the Nephilim reversal grids, right? And gosh, there's just so much here. But what's happening, or what I'm seeing, is it's like the proverbial head of the dragon has been cut off and all hell's broken loose. And the veils are like not even there. I know for people like us that can see it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But we're seeing it in people who don't see what we see. We're seeing that expressed through emotions, through delusions, through derangements, right? This is all of the pestilence and war and famine. It's like it's all happening at once, right? And it's pushing through. And so, I mean, the matrix of the sextant matrix of like our bodies aging, that's not natural to human beings. Those are reversal grids, right? There's so much to talk about here. But what is with I just went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Like my mind is just going. I'm every time I talk to you, I just get all this information.
Let's go back to religions.
Thank you. Thank you. You're going to have to keep me scared.
It's made up of two words, religion.
Yes.
And legion comes from the Latin legos, which means to gather. So it's regathering. but it's a regathering like a shepherd gathers his sheep, or cowboys go and corral their cows and cattle, and they regather them into groups so that they can control them.
Yes.
And that's what religion means.
Yes.
And it's to gather people into a like-minded, okay, like-minded. So we become like-minded in a doctrine and a false dogma.
Yeah.
But we believe that with all our hearts and all our souls, and we will pursue it.
Yeah.
But like you, when I was 5 years old, and was I was also in a Catholic family, and my mother took me to church for the first time, and I walked into this church, and I saw a big cross in the front of the church, and there was man hanging from the cross,
Yeah.
and I pulled and I said, "I'm not going in there."
It's frightening.
Thought to myself, if that's what they do to the people in this church, I'm not going there.
I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of it. That's it's
But
interesting.
people don't recognize it. That
No, they don't. And it's because would you agree it's because they can't see? They can't see that. They're blinded to the they have no idea that these are all false gods. And they don't understand that as the Catholic Church specifically is Saturn moon matrix, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
oh my
People just
gosh,
need to go. The people just need to go through the history of this planet.
right.
About 325 AD, when they had the Nicene Council,
Yes.
and then they had the Nicene Creed that came out of that, and people had to repeat that Nicene Creed over and over and over again, as I did as a child. I
Hmm.
think the Holy Catholic Church, and off we went, and so we were brainwashed into that kind of thinking. But if you look at what happened after that, the Earth was plunged into what is called the Dark Ages,
Yeah.
and the age of darkness on this planet. And it descended, and it was all controlled by the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which is, we see, well, some of us can actually see through the the matrix and we see what's happening, right? But most people can't, and it's not a fault of it's not a fault of the people, and it's not saying that people in Christianity or Catholicism or Judaism or whatever, it's not about the people, right?
yeah. I
It
don't condemn Catholics because
right.
I was brought up a Catholic. You were brought up a Catholic. We all went through the system,
Yeah.
so I understand deeply, what that system was all about and how it's made up. And I experienced it firsthand, going through the churches and going through my my confirmation, and
Yeah.
then my first confession, and then my first communion, and all the catechism I had to learn in order to do that,
Yeah.
and going to catechism classes every week and learning about the sacraments, and and being indoctrinated into this dogma. And it was so fierce that in my family, which is Irish Catholic family, anybody who disagreed with that dogma was our enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anybody was
A-
Protestant was,
And how loving is that? It's,
yeah,
that is not, I, one of the things I did the same classes, right? And I remember specifically when it came to confirmation, we actually had to sign a contract that said we were going to continue our life in this particular manner and order. We were going to continue, all of these things. How are we going to raise our families? How are we going to have our children? And I read this and I said, I literally said to the priest, I said, I'm not signing this. I was, I think, 17 years old. I said, I am not signing this. I do not agree to any of this. I'm not going to tell you, you can't tell me who I'm going to be X amount of years from now. And what's interesting is that we energetically sign contracts that we have no idea we sign. And this happens on the soul level, Colin. And this is going to bring us back to the soul, because these religions, in my opinion, in my experience, they are in control of the false white light. And this is in, again, the fourth dimension. This is where we got to go get our soul, right? This is where we got to go get that. And this is in the astral realms, right? We're trapped there. We're
Yeah.
trapped there. And you have to go fetch your own soul. And then you have to undo all the contracts. Then you have to pull in all your memories. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I do in my courses, we do something called soul reclamation.
Hmm.
So it's reclaiming your soul. So, because what happens here is because we give over our thoughts and emotions to what is outside of us, we lose our souls.
Yeah.
We lose our ability to have original, authentic thoughts and original and authentic emotions. So we become um, uh, controlled by a system of thought control, mind control, and emotional control, because that is what the controllers here want us to do. They control, things, and so suddenly, in February comes along something called COVID-19 or coronavirus, and everyone's told we've got to lock down, we've got to shut everything down, we've got to close the economy, and people have got to wear masks, and they're not allowed to assemble anymore, and they're not allowed to do what they've been doing before. So people who have jobs, their businesses are going to be shut down because there's this terrible crisis on this planet, and it's called the COVID-19, and they give it a name and they call it stuff, but they don't tell us what it is. Because if they told us in the beginning that coronavirus was something called a cold, a cold virus,
Yeah.
everybody has the coronavirus.
Hmm.
Every single person on this planet is filled with the flu bug.
Yep.
And it's when this flu bug activates in the body, it then turns into the flu. But one can prevent that if you know how to prevent, from getting this virus activating your body. But
Understand
because,
what your body is. Yeah.
yeah, uh, and so people just obeyed, and I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed at how obedient people were. They were like sheep. They just rushed and they bought their masks and they rushed out and bought their toilet paper and they rushed out and stocked up on food and supplies and the governments of this world, who are the controllers, part of the control system, they told her you may not do this, you may not do that, and if you do this, and they oppressed people,
Yeah.
through the military in South Africa, through the military and the police. People were not allowed to travel. So everyone shut down. We didn't visit our friends. We couldn't go out. In the beginning, it was terrible because people were afraid to go out of their houses. And that's, that is just how the stupid system works here. They just keep controlling our emotions by introducing trauma onto our planet. And they use the mainstream media to do that. That is uh, their Sermon on the Mount. Listen to us because we speak the truth. So
Exactly.
everybody believes what the mainstream media says. And before you know it, boom, I'm sitting here looking at all these people thinking, what the hell are they doing? Why are they obeying all this stupid crap?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of us, or uh, I have a really hard time. I have a really hard time with that one. It actually makes me really upset, and to to see humanity in such a level of fear, and see how that actually it activates exactly what the controller groups want. If we're not in fear, they don't have the proper electromagnetic frequencies to run their reversal grids, which means the gig is up, right? You know, it's like
Yeah.
pulling the curtain back from the Wizard of Oz. You're expecting this, you know, you're expecting something crazy, and you just see this little this little man, you know, controlling everything, telling you what to do, how to feel, where to go, when to do it. And, you know, it's like the gig is up. And there are so many of us that are seeing this and noticing this. It's like they're running out of time, right? And it just, it can't be kept from us anymore. And it's upsetting. There are still some people in so much fear. And this is about they fear death. And that brings us to, you know, seeing a man pinned up on a cross. You know, the fear of death has been instilled in us for centuries. You know, these trigger events have, or all of these wars, we're talking about galactic wars, okay? Things that when you bring up the Atlantean, when the Nephilim came here and unplugged our DNA, we didn't know who we were. We literally forgot. And so now they use these events to trigger us to buy toilet paper, mask up our faces, buy all these things. It's insanity. But we don't know. We we don't know, and it's by no fault of the people. It's by no fault of the humans.
Yeah.
The only way that they can make this work is by creating a divide, and they're doing an excellent job of it. But it's not going to hold for long. That fabric, you know, it reminds me of you know, when you pull something so much and the fibers just, you know, they pull apart and get so big, it just it fall, you know, the product falls out, right? Like, so the
Yeah.
product being truth, like the truth is just being exposed and falling out. But yeah.
Yeah. And people have got to get used to the idea that they are not citizens of this planet. They are citizens of the universe.
Yes.
So they have to understand how the universe works to get out of the shit that they're in on this planet.
Yeah. But to understand any of that, you first have to understand what you are. You still have
Yeah.
to go and collect these fragments, these soul fragments, right? This is um,
Yeah.
there are all these imposter spirits, right? There are all of these things that have, and this is, you know, part of the fallen angelics, you know, creating different hierarchies um, that are really within the self as well, right? Like demonics live within the self, entities, these things live within the self, not by choice, but by happenstance, right? It just is what it is, and so
Yeah.
just have to wake up and clear that up. So simple,
Yeah.
right? Just wake up and clear it up. Just go get your pieces back. It's
Yeah. It's really just walking into a room and seeing what's there
yeah,
instead of walking into a room and being afraid of what might be there.
right.
You see, so people have an expectation, uh, what I call a disaster expectation. They have an expectation that bad things are going to happen. They have an expectation that around the next corner lies a burglar or a thief or a robber or a hijacker or, you know, a mugger. And so they walk around through life with all these expectations so that they don't actually see what's there
Yeah,
because their minds are telling them that there's something else around the corner that you don't want to see, you can't see, and it's going to hurt you. So they don't actually see what they see.
mm-hmm.
So it's like going into your garden. What do you see when you go into your garden? You know, you see plants, You see leaves, you see the sky, the clouds, everything else around you. You see bees coming around and pollinating plants. You see butterflies coming doing pollination. You see the ground, the soil, and you see the leaves falling onto the ground. And the ground, those leaves then feed the microorganisms and the bacteria that break them down so that they become food for the soil. And they can't see the symbiotic relationship that exists in nature. So they think that their relationship is only uh, the relationships are limited to other people. They can't see that the relationships are related to the entire universe. And the entire universe is in a symbiotic relationship with itself. It's one self, it's one soul, it's one thing that has many, many different expressions. And and so if we can just get out of this unnatural kind of experience we're having of negative expectations and saying, hey, we can change it. We can recreate
Mhm.
and reconnect with the universe. And
Right.
that is the power of the soul. One can only do it within oneself. Nothing outside of you is going to help you. You have to start from within.
And thank you for that. I think that's absolutely beautiful. You have to start from within. I I have experienced, and I'm sure you have too, that our thoughts actually change. Like what we're thinking on a regular basis actually creates and shapes our energy field, right? And kind of our colors, and kind of, not the way we vibrate, our frequency, our colors, our spins, like all of these things. Um, so, that is, how do you influence the light body with your thoughts? How can somebody hold a thought that is positive when they're haven't collected all their soul pieces? Or, do you put sticky notes up? Do you, like, what do you do to try to hold a vibration if you don't know how to do that? How would you share that?
Yeah, people have to understand that their thoughts are coming from their taught, from what they've been taught, from the indoctrination, from the dogma out there. So that they are recycling the same old thoughts over and over and over because they've been trained to do that. That's what they've been trained to do, like monkeys in a circus. But we have to get out of that and say, I want to retrain my mind. To retrain my mind, I have to come up with new information that replaces the old programming. So I need to reprogram my mind. And to reprogram the mind requires information. Now, in my own awakening, that's what happened to me. I didn't retrain my mind. I got information, new information. I was taught and trained by higher dimensional beings that what you're experiencing is this, but this is what actually is out there.
Yeah.
So you have a choice. You can keep on doing the things that you did and get the same things, have the same outcomes as you always got, or
Mhm.
you can change your mind. Paul the apostle said this: I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice unto God, which is your reasonable service, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And it's the renewal of your mind that we have to do. So we have to come with new information that is authentic, that is provable, that is observable, that makes sense, that uh, that benefits, that is beneficial to the soul and brings sustenance and joy and love and peace to the soul. And once we have that information, we can overcome anything because the fallen ones have no power. They are vampires who feed off us, and we give them their power. They have no power. And once we realize that these are, you know, like George Bush Sr., he has no power, but he exercised power over his life, but he's been done in for. He's been suicided, I can put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Because there's some people on this planet who are working together with our higher selves who realize, hang on, this is what's happening on this planet. And so they're here to assist us in order to create this great awakening so that people can see that they have the power. It's the people who have the power, not
right,
the systems out there.
right.
And when people grow into that, they can begin to exercise that power. But they can't exercise it if they don't know how to.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been told to do by my higher self is go tell the people, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell everybody.
Exactly.
They are the power. The power exists within them. And what is that power? The power to think and to create new information and to bring in new information into the soul that resonates with the soul and then to take control of their thoughts because the one feeds off the other. The thoughts feed the emotions and the emotions feed the thoughts. So bringing them together and working together in unity and in resonance, co-resonance with each other creates the calmness within the soul, creates the peace within the soul, it creates the love that exists in the soul. If you can bring those two opposing forces, apparently opposing forces together, but they're not opposing forces, they are symbiotic forces. The
Yeah.
one creates the other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Does it make any sense?
It makes plenty of sense to me. I have so many questions. One of the and Bart actually has a question as well. I finally was able to pull the questions up, but one of the things that is that people will argue, and I've heard this argument myself, and it's one of the things you say: make it, something that's provable, something that people can see, right? People argue that point all the time, and they'll argue it even from a scientific point, right? Well, you can't prove that. You can't prove that the soul exists, or you can't prove that God exists, or you can't prove that by having this high frequency of love that, add in whatever you want, this, that, or the other thing is going to change my life if I change my mental structure, right? It's something that I've shared with people before too. If you could just take this positive affirmation, and source will give me a positive affirmation, or with kind of like a remedy of, hey, say this, X amount of times a day, this many days a week, or whatever, and that will shift this little aspect of the light body, right? But people will say, you can't prove that. That's hogwash. That's malarkey. Like, how do you get somebody past the idea of understanding? And I think this is a little bit what Bart is asking. He says, is there any advice to get such download of information as you describe, Colin, for renewal of our minds? And I think I'm kind of asking it in a little bit of a different way, but like, how do you verify, how do you validate that, um, that a download is provable, that it's real? I mean, we know it's real. We feel it in our heart. We embody it. It's a cellular knowing. It's an embodiment that we feel. But then somebody will say, well, that's just yours, or you have, or they'll think that you're taken over and you don't really believe in God because the religions are so impounded into our structure, right? So like, how do you say that downloads are renewals, or how do we take that as truth? Did I make sense?
If,
I hope.
if one looks at it from a scientific point of view, from a laboratory point of view, is if you go into a laboratory and you're trying to discover what it is that that what a cell structure is. You look at it in a microscope and you examine the cell, and then you try to figure out what all those little bits of the cell are. And you see it's got a membrane and the little things sticking out from it that look like dead trees. And you realize, well, what are these dead trees? So you pull those dead trees off the cell and you examine them and you see that they're glycoforms, they're sugars, there are 8 different glycoforms in the cell. And so you try to figure out what is the cell, okay? And so you in the laboratory, you look at things, you examine them, and you pull them apart, and you try to find different parts of the cell, and so you eventually figure out what the cell is and how it works. And that's just the people have to go examine the information I'm bringing, pull it apart, look at the little bits here and there, find the information. You can't, because people can't see cells.
But they're there.
They're there. We are cellular beings, but you can't see cells unless you go and examine them, pull them apart, look at the information. What is there? What is in the cell? Look at the different components of the cell, the DNA that's in every cell in our body. How does this DNA look? What is the string of information that's contained on this DNA string? The amino acids that form the strings on the DNA, where does that come from? What is that? That's the molecules. So what are molecules? And then you go down, you examine the information. Molecules are atoms that are vibrating at a high rate. So this cell, this molecule must have an atomic structure. So let's look at the atomic structure of the cell, of the amino acids, and then you look at the atomic structure, which is the chemical base for those things. And so you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the nature of what a cell is. Now, if I said to somebody, hey, your body's filled with cells, but you can't see them, is seeing believing? Do you know that you have cells in your body because you can't see them? They're there, they're apparent. When I look at you, you got a skin. What is that skin? It's cells.
Mm-hmm.
So one has to, I'm not saying one has to use the scientific, because science in a laboratory point of view is very supposed to be objective. But one has to say, does this information resonate with me? Does this information mean to me? And can I pull this information apart? And can each part of this information connect to something which is greater? So, and then you begin to understand how this thing works. So that's what I do. I present people with information about things they can't see, but which are apparent when one understands what they are. So we can't see the cells, but they're apparent because we have these things called bodies, and each body has different cells and cellular structure. So, this idea that seeing is believing is nonsense, because people can't see their brains, they can't see their hearts, they can't see their thoughts, they can't see their emotions, but they are all apparent by what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one has to go in and start digging, researching, pulling the bits of information apart and trying to find out what the hell is this thing? What am I dealing with?
Yeah, I love that. I completely, that resonates with me. That seeing is not believing, right? That it doesn't always make truth. So thank you for explaining it that way. That was helpful for me, anyway. But and I think that's going to be helpful. I hope that we answered Bart's question. Um, uh, and I assume he'll give us a little shout out if he needs a little bit more expansion on that. But oh my gosh, so that is gonna again bring us full circle to the soul again. Just because we can't see the soul doesn't mean the soul doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then, and then from there, it's like the first thing we really have to do, once you understand first and foremost that, you're a multidimensional electromagnetic being, and once you wrap your head around that, then you have to go and get your soul. You have to awaken your soul, right? And once you start to awaken your soul, there are some hard truths and there are some traumas that come with that because of, and this is going to talk about your cells, because of our cellular knowing, because our cells hold everything, right? That means all of our past histories. That means everything that we're sharing, everything that Colin remembers, everything that I remember, everything that people remember is in each of us in our own individual perceptions, with our own individual imprints, our own individual memories. But they come from not just this awareness in this body, in this life. And once we bring that soul in, then we start understanding that we have an oversoul or a monad. And then from there, we start to understand we have an avatar, we have, or, we go, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. That's what it's called. Can you say that again? Because I spoke over you a little bit.
Rishi.
Rishi, thank you. And that is, explain what that is.
Well, a rishi is, people have generally heard about the avatar, but the avatar itself is this part of self that exists in dimensions 7, 8, and 9. Your rishi is yourself that exists in dimensions 10, 11, and 12.
Right.
So that is really your higher self in manifest soul consciousness. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the rishi is your highest self, but my highest self that I speak of was my avatar self.
Yeah.
My Aismia. Then I had another self, which was my oversoul self,
Mm-hmm.
called Maha, from dimensions 4, 5, and 6. So we have all these identities that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is because the human identity has overtaken the soul identity.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't understand that we have a unique soul resonance. And so that's why when we are born here, we are given a name in all capitals that enters us into a system. In the universe, when you are incarnated, you have a unique soul resonance. And that is your soul identity. That is your identity of who you actually are.
And your key to get into solar gates and through dimensional
Yeah.
dimensions.
And we eternal beings.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. They can't accept that. We are eternal. We will be forever.
Yeah.
As long as our soul template is intact, we will be forever. But what we keep agreeing, and that's our responsibility, but we keep agreeing to be subject to the stupid system here.
I love that. I know when I do healing sessions, for me to be able to go into a different harmonic or a different dimensional aspect of myself, different dimensional aspects of self offer different gifts, right? Offer different abilities and different memories, even though it's all like one, right? So if there's something, that needs to be pulled off of somebody, an implant or, something like that, oftentimes I'll go into like dimension 8 and, kind of call in, like Orion codes and these aspects of self. And oh my gosh, I don't even want to get into stars with you, but someday we'll have to go into stars and like how that works, because they're all like in our inside our body, we can't see our organs, right? So, but our organs, until we combine them, and this might go into the rishi that you're talking about, I don't know, because I'm not well, I don't understand this, how the words, how the language fits together, right? But I can see the things. I just don't understand the language. So, like each of our organs has a different soul, and we have to put that together, right, into one. And so, and so since we're talking about souls, what do you have to say about how we realize these organs have different souls, and then how we combine that together? Is that the rishi once it's combined, or is that something completely different?
Yeah, perhaps I can just correct something you said. You said all our organs are souls. They're not souls. They are part of our physical body,
Thank you.
but they represent our souls. So our souls determine what our physical body will look like. Um, but each of our organs has what is called a Merkaba field.
Okay.
So each organ is has a power generation system, because that's what a Merkaba field. The Merkaba generates power. That power is distributed, and then it's transmitted and then distributed, just like our electrical system. We have power generators that
Mhm.
transmit the energy and through transmission lines that go into distribution boxes, and that goes into the electrical systems that we experience in our councils and cities and towns. Yes, and the universe works pretty much in the same way, that everything that is a living organism has a Merkaba field. And our bodies, we all have a Merkaba field. We experience our reality because of the power generation that exists in the Merkaba field. That Merkaba field transmits that energy through our chakra system, and then the chakra system distributes that through the ley lines in our bodies that we call meridians. Now, people who do acupuncture will know about the different meridian points in the body and how they work. And so, meridian lines are the way that energy is transferred from our Merkaba field into the different organs, because each organ, each or chakra distributes energy to different organs. Like your first chakra transmits the energy for the lower body organs, and then the second chakra produces the energy for the organs that exist in um, your sacral chakra, and then up to your solar plexus, and the fourth chakra produces the energy for the heart and the lungs.
Mhm.
Um, and so we have this energy system. Now, that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. They have a whole soul body, a construct
Yeah.
in their soul bodies that actually generates, transmits, and distributes energy. And this force that is called life force, or chi, or prana, is that life force that animates their bodies and gives their bodies the ability to experience the experiences they're having. So there's so much for people to learn. But like I said, if you want to learn this, go in, take a look, start taking it apart, examining the information, and then come to your own conclusions.
I agree with this. Was beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. I love the way that you said it. That was so perfect and makes sense. It's hard here to put a word with something that you sense, right? Like, or it's hard to express that or share, share that. That makes sense. So thank you so much for that. Before we wrap up, I because each of these organs are connected to this field that we naturally have, this chakra system. So many people think that, especially in Western societies and Western medicines, right? They don't take it. They will treat the energy body or the chakra system as if it doesn't exist, just just like they don't agree that we have more DNA structure or strands, right? But and we can talk about this next time too, but I kind of want to just to bring this up is, if then we corrected and cleared our chakra systems and balanced the Merkaba in each of those organs, would we not be able to heal disease,
Absolutely.
dis-ease?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, we have to start with the Merkaba field and understand uh, that many people's Merkaba field have been distorted.
Yeah.
Because the Merkaba is supposed to be a counter-rotating, like pyramid structure. It kind of looks like a pyramid structure, but it's more like a diamond structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that counter rotates. So you have these two etheric bodies counter rotating on each other, but what with men, and that generates electricity
Right.
and power and life force. But many people have the same spin Merkabas. They're spinning in the same direction. So they're not generating energy, they're compressing energy.
Right.
And
Yes.
because they're compressing energy, all their experiences is themselves. Their whole world is who they are. And they think that all the meaning in life is just based on their own experiences. And that's simply not true. So one has to start with the Merkaba field, correct the Merkaba spin, correct the spin speed,
The
because the
spin
spin
rate. Yeah.
is very important. Getting the Merkaba in alignment, because of the Earth's rotation has been, you know,
Off.
moved off the natural uh, electromagnetic field of the Earth. So, because that's moved, we have to then get our angle of the Merkaba field right as well, so that
Yeah.
we begin to produce natural Merkaba energy in line with the universe,
Yeah.
and not in line with the distorted energy that's here because of this misalignment of the rotational spin and the energy spin. So yeah, there's lots of things people can do, you know, and I teach all this stuff in my courses, and I hope people will pay attention because it's very real.
Yeah.
It exists, and it's learning how to no longer be a citizen of Earth, but a citizen of the universe.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference because we
Huge.
are part of the fabric of the universe. Each of us is uh, is part of that fabric. You know, the waves of light and sound, they, they interweave themselves like a fabric. And each uh, time they create conscious self-awareness. That conscious self-awareness then becomes part of the universe.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And and so they have to take their place and take responsibility for themselves in the universal structure,
Mm-hmm.
and not be so dumbed down by thinking the only people who exist in this planet, in this universe, are humans. Sorry.
And
Lots
I know, so hate to disappoint you, but that's definitely not the case. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I see that a lot in the field too. Either people's Merkabas aren't spinning, or they have half of it, or they're spinning the wrong direction. Some of them are spinning the same way, and so one of the things I say is, however you see it, some people will sense their Merkabas once we start taking them step by step through this, right? And it's like, however you're seeing it is okay. Don't judge it. Don't, whatever. Let's just see it first, see what's happening. But I do find that one of the toughest challenges is, once you get your Merkaba spinning in with correct rotation and at the right rate, balancing it with the universal structures, I find a little bit more challenging. But then when you start getting things going, that can be really disorienting for people, right? Because they're not used to that.
Yeah.
I've seen people get off balance, and it's like, it's okay, just sit down for a minute. Like, hold on, have a glass of water, take your
That,
time.
that That happened to me when my Merkaba started activating because I was doing these exercises, visualizations and chants, and to get my Merkaba spinning correctly and at the right spin speed. And I was walking to work one day down some stairs, and suddenly I heard the sound going around the roo, and then it stopped, but then I fell over. I fell down the stairs. And I landed at the bottom. I thought, what the hell was that?
Whoops.
But what had happened, my Merkaba fields had activated,
Yep.
and suddenly I kind of lost balance.
Yeah.
I lost orientation, and I was a little confused for a while after that. I
Yeah.
didn't understand what had happened, but that's what it was. My Merkaba field had activated,
Yep.
and after that, I started getting streams of information, because then I was able to pull in information and release the information, because that's what the Merkaba does. It pulls in information and releases,
Yep.
and male and female energies work in opposite directions. So the male Merkaba spins clockwise, the female top spin is anti-clockwise, and getting that right is also very important.
Yeah, and it's challenging too, right? Because, that takes us to clearing emotional and mental um, uh, indoctrinations that we have, and
Yeah,
understanding that, that goes back to whoever controls the mind controls the soul. Whoever's
yeah,
controlling the soul is going to control your Merkaba field, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And people, you talk about Merkaba fields and people have no idea what you're talking about. But, I can tell you that Merkaba fields are one of the most powerful things you can have, because when I was traveling between Sirius B to Sirius A, when I was on a journey, my higher self took me in his Merkaba field. He said,
Wow.
"This is my vehicle that I travel through the universe with." So people like, I've heard people talking about seeing orbs in the sky,
Yeah.
and Merkabas have a particular shape because of the spin differential between the top spin and the bottom spin, so they look like an orb.
Yep. Yep.
A tear
Absolutely. Oh.
a teardrop shape,
Hmm.
and so the Merkaba is a very, very powerful thing, and the problem is the fallen angelics know that, and so they've hidden this information from us so that we don't learn about it,
Right.
because and they hide it in their secret organizations, because the mystery schools and the Kabbalah all know about the Merkaba and they understand how it works, but they keep it a secret.
Exactly. And then in turn, our mystery schools have been distorted and taken over by Thothian ideologies, and
Yeah, they all always teach the truth,
yeah,
but with a little twist.
yep,
You
with
twist it just a little bit to make it.
little twist of lime, little little lemon twist. Yeah, yep. Oh my gosh, Colin, it was really fantastic to talk to you today. Um, I just think that we're going to keep going and going. There's so much to discuss. You guys, Colin has amazing classes. I know he's starting up a new one coming up. So you go to the writings of colinjoburn.com, correct? And you can check out his website, check out some of his writings, look at what his classes are about. You're starting a new class up. Am I understanding that correctly, or there's one in the works?
Yes, I'm busy with one called The Mechanics of Ascension.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I posted one of the second part on my Facebook page today to give people some idea of the flavor of it, how it works, and But uh, what I've tried to do is I don't my information I bring is not copyrighted,
Yeah.
because I believe the information I bring is universal truth,
Yeah.
and there's no ways you can copyright universal truth. So I try to charge a minimal fee for the information that I bring, but I can't give one course and tell people that's going to teach them everything.
Right.
So I've started a 3-year training course.
Yep.
So people pay a small amount on a monthly basis and then have access to all the information and the courses that I teach. Because it took me 3 years to begin to understand how it all fitted together and how it all weaved together into
Yeah.
one solid truth. Because you, like anything, if you take one piece and you make that your truth, and you don't understand the other bits of truth, that is not really true. It's true about that thing that you're observing, but it doesn't fit all the pieces together. So, what I try to do is fit all the pieces together so people have a much greater understanding of the bigger nature of truth.
Yeah.
And why it's so big is because it's been hidden from us. Everything we've been told is a lie.
Yep.
So it's really reconstructing your entire knowledge base so that you begin to see things in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's how people will get back their power. You know?
I love that. The law of structure is a really big deal for me. Being a builder is a really big thing. And in order to build a strong structure to rebuild the houses within the self, you have to tear down the old building. You have
Yeah,
to, and release that. So you guys check out Colin's classes and be patient with yourself, right? He's right. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't learn something in a few days. You can get rules and guidelines and whatever down in a weekend, but you're not going to get the experience. You have to do the work, and that
yeah,
takes time, and that's okay. That's what we have.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we have
It's
is
like
time.
it's like going on a journey. You don't get on the airplane and you're coming back on the airplane.
Yeah.
You have to go through all the experiences you can have. The plane's going to go somewhere, it's going to land, you're going to get off, get into the hotel,
Yeah.
and so have all those experiences. And it's the same things like that journey. You
Yeah.
have to take the journey to reconstruct the information you've been given.
I agree. I agree. All right, you guys, until next week, we'll see you again Sunday for Pacific Standard Time, 11 o'clock and 8 o'clock in Africa, South Africa, where Colin is. So thank you guys for being here. And for those of you that'll join us after the fact, so much love to you each. Love you, Colin, so much. This is amazing.
Love you too.
Yeah.
Love all the people watching and listening. Love you all.
Love
Bye.
you all. Bye, guys.